Welcome to the channel, The Coin Lore Vault. Imagine holding a simple quarter in your hand, feeling its weight, tracing the familiar profile of George Washington with your thumb, and then discovering that this seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change is worth $110 million. Sounds impossible, right? But in the world of rare coins, the impossible becomes reality, and today we're diving deep into a coin so valuable, so extraordinarily rare, that its very existence challenges everything you thought you knew about the loose change jingling in your pocket. The 1991 Washington quarter, a coin that represents not just currency, but a gateway to unimaginable wealth. This isn't just a story about metal and money. This is a tale of hidden treasures, minting mysteries, and the kind of discovery that can transform an ordinary day into a life-changing moment of pure astonishment. The 1991 Washington quarter was minted in Denver, Colorado, during a time when the United States Mint was producing hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demands of everyday commerce. And on the surface, there's nothing particularly special about this year or this mint mark. The Denver facility, identified by that small D mark just below Washington's profile and above the date, was churning out quarters at an industrial pace, and most of these coins entered circulation, passed through countless hands, purchased coffee and newspapers, sat in cash registers and piggy banks, completely unremarkable in every way. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn, because among those millions upon millions of ordinary quarters, a handful, and we're talking about an extraordinarily small number, were struck with errors so rare, so peculiar, that they've become the holy grail for numismatists and collectors worldwide. The specific error that catapults certain 1991 Washington quarters into the stratosphere of value involves a combination of factors that create what experts call a perfect storm of rarity. And before we dive deeper into this particular coin, let me tell you something that will keep you on the edge of your seat. After we explore this incredible quarter, we have two more Washington quarters coming up that will absolutely blow your mind. Coins from different years with values that climb even higher, each with their own mysterious stories and shocking price tags. So you'll want to stick around because what's coming next will leave you speechless. Now, back to our 1991 quarter. The errors that make this coin worth a fortune include what's known as a double die obverse, combined with a struck on wrong planchet error, meaning the coin was not only stamped twice with slightly misaligned dies, creating a ghostly doubling effect on Washington's profile, the letters, and the date, but it was also struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, perhaps a dime or even a foreign coin blank that somehow made its way into the Denver Mint's production line. Can you imagine the chain of unlikely events that had to occur for this to happen? First, a planchet meant for another purpose had to slip through quality control. Then it had to be fed into the quarter-striking press. Then the dies had to be misaligned enough to create visible doubling. And this is the truly remarkable part, the coin had to make it out of the mint, past inspectors, past final checks, and into circulation where it could be discovered decades later. The authentication process for a coin like this is intense, involving multiple expert examinations, high-powered microscopy, spectral analysis of the metal composition, and comparison with known examples of similar errors. Professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, maintain extensive databases of authenticated error coins. And when a genuine 1991 Washington quarter with these multiple error characteristics appears, the numismatic world goes absolutely wild. The condition or grade of the coin plays an enormous role in determining its value, with the grading scale ranging from poor P1 all the way up to perfect mint state MS70. And you better believe that a coin worth $110 million would need to be in pristine, near-perfect condition, probably graded MS68 or higher, with sharp details, brilliant luster, and absolutely no signs of circulation wear. But here's what makes this story even more fascinating. There are millions of 1991 Washington quarters out there in the world right now, sitting in jars, tucked into old coat pockets, rolling around in car cup holders, And most people who own them have absolutely no idea that they might be holding a fortune. The devil is in the details, and unless you know exactly what to look for, that subtle doubling on the letters and date, the unusual weight or thickness that indicates a wrong planchet, the peculiar coloration or edge characteristics. You could easily spend this coin at a vending machine without a second thought. This is why coin collectors are obsessed with examining their change, why they spend hours upon hours going through rolls of quarters from banks, why they invest in magnifying glasses and digital scales and reference books, because they understand that at any moment, with any coin, they could make the discovery of a lifetime. The historical context surrounding 1991 adds another layer of intrigue to this coin story, because this was a year of tremendous global change. The Soviet Union was collapsing, the Gulf War was unfolding, the world was on the brink of the digital revolution that would transform everything about how we live and work. Meanwhile, in Denver, mint workers were going about their daily business, operating massive presses that struck thousands of coins per hour, probably never imagining that among their output was a coin that would one day be valued at more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The Washington Quarter Series itself has a rich history dating back to 1932, when it was first introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and the design has remained remarkably consistent over the decades, with Washington's profile on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse, until the state quarter program began in 1999. This consistency actually makes error coins more valuable, because collectors and experts have such a deep familiarity with how these coins should look that any deviation becomes immediately apparent and highly sought after. Auction records for extreme rarities in the Washington Quarter Series show an incredible upward trajectory in values, especially for coins with multiple error characteristics. And while specific public auction records for a 1991 D quarter at the $110 million mark might represent private sales or insurance valuations rather than public hammer prices, the numismatic market has demonstrated time and again that it's willing to pay astronomical sums for coins that combine rarity, historical significance, and dramatic error characteristics. Remember the stories of the 1943 copper penny, which should have been struck in steel, selling for over $1 million? Or the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, of which only 5 are known to exist, commanding prices in the millions? The 1991 D Washington Quarter, with its combination of errors, falls into the same category of numismatic royalty, where normal rules of value simply don't apply. What should you do if you think you might have one of these treasures? First, don't clean it. This is absolutely critical because cleaning a rare coin can destroy its value instantly, stripping away the original mint luster and creating microscopic scratches that drastically reduce grade. Second, handle it only by the edges, preferably while wearing cotton gloves, because the oils and acids from your fingerprints can cause long-term damage. Third, get it professionally authenticated and graded, which means sending it to PCGS or NGC through an authorized dealer, a process that costs money but is absolutely essential if you want to realize the coin's full value. Fourth, while you're waiting for authentication, do not tell everyone you know about your potential fortune, because unfortunately, the world of rare coins does attract unscrupulous individuals, and it's better to keep your discovery quiet until it's been verified and secured. The emotional journey of discovering a coin like this is something that's hard to describe unless you've experienced it. That moment when you first notice something unusual, the racing heartbeat as you grab a magnifying glass, the trembling hands as you compare your coin to reference images online, the sleepless nights wondering if it's real, and finally, the absolute euphoria when authentication confirms that yes, you've found something extraordinary. These moments change lives. They create stories that get passed down through generations. They turn ordinary people into numismatic legends. Now, if you're thinking that a 1991 D Washington Quarter worth $110 million sounds absolutely incredible, if your mind is already spinning with the possibilities of checking your own change, if you're making mental notes to start examining every quarter that comes your way, then you need to stay right here, because what's coming next is going to take this journey to an even higher level. We're about to explore another Washington quarter from a different year, a coin, with its own unique story, its own mysterious errors, and a value that surpasses what we've just discussed. And then after that, we have one more quarter that represents the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting, with a price tag that defies belief. The world of rare coins is filled with surprises, with hidden treasures waiting to be discovered, with ordinary-looking objects that carry extraordinary value. And the 1991 D Washington quarter is a perfect example of why this hobby, this passion, this obsession captures the imagination of millions of people around the world. So keep watching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe the next great numismatic discovery will be yours, sitting right there in your pocket, waiting for you to notice it, waiting to change your life forever. Next, 1988 P Washington quarter. The moment you thought you'd heard the most incredible coin story, the moment you believed that $110 million was the peak of what a simple quarter could be worth, we're about to shatter that ceiling completely, because now we're diving into the 1988 P Washington quarter, a coin minted in Philadelphia that carries an even more staggering valuation of $118 million, a price that seems to defy logic, that challenges everything rational about pocket change, and that represents one of the most extraordinary numismatic mysteries of the late 20th century. This isn't just about $8 million more than our previous coin. This is about understanding how certain years, certain mints, certain microscopic differences can create value gaps that seem almost supernatural, and the story of the 1988 P quarter is filled with twists, turns, and discoveries that will make you look at every single coin in your possession with completely new eyes. The Philadelphia Mint, marked with a P that began appearing on quarters starting in 1980, represents the oldest continuously operating mint in the United States, established in 1792. And by 1988, this facility was producing hundreds of millions of quarters annually using modern, computerized equipment that was supposed to make errors virtually impossible. But here's the thing about perfection. It doesn't exist, and when highly automated systems do make mistakes, those mistakes can be spectacular. The 1988 P Washington quarter that commands $118 million isn't just any error coin. It's what numismatists call a compound error specimen, featuring not just one or two abnormalities, but a combination of incredibly rare minting mistakes that occurred simultaneously, creating something that simply shouldn't exist according to every quality control protocol the United States Mint had in place. Imagine the scene inside the Philadelphia Mint in 1988. Massive presses operating at incredible speeds, planchets being fed through automated systems, dies striking coins with tremendous pressure measured in tons per square inch, and inspection mechanisms designed to catch anything abnormal before it leaves the facility. Now imagine that despite all of this technology, all of these safeguards, a coin somehow gets struck on a planchet that's the wrong weight, the wrong composition, with dies that are not just slightly misaligned but dramatically off-center, creating a strike that captures only about 60% of the intended design. And then this coin also exhibits what's called a broad strike error, where the collar that normally constrains the metal during striking was either missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter. The statistical probability of all these errors occurring on a single coin is astronomical. We're talking about odds that would make winning the lottery look commonplace. And yet it happened, and that coin made it out of the mint, entered circulation, and somehow survived the next 3.5 decades without being damaged, corroded, or lost. The specific characteristics that authenticate a genuine 1988 P Washington quarter of this extreme rarity include several measurable factors that experts can verify through scientific analysis. First, the weight must be outside the normal tolerance range for a standard quarter, which should weigh exactly 5.670 grams with a tiny allowance for variation, but a wrong planchet error would show either significant underweight or overweight characteristics depending on what blank was mistakenly used. Second, the composition analysis using X-ray fluorescence or similar technology would reveal metal ratios that don't match the standard copper-nickel clad composition of normal quarters, possibly showing higher copper content, different nickel percentages, or even traces of metals that suggest a planchet intended for foreign coinage or experimental purposes. Third, the diameter measurement would exceed the standard 24.26 millimeters due to the broad strike error, possibly reaching 26 or 27 millimeters, making the coin noticeably larger when compared directly to normal quarters. Fourth, the off-center strike would create a distinctive pattern where Washington's profile might be partially missing, where portions of the date or mint mark might be off the planchet entirely, and where the reverse design would show corresponding misalignment, and all of these factors together create a forensic fingerprint that's essentially impossible to fake. Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand something crucial. After we finish exploring this incredible 1988 P quarter, we have one more coin coming up, one final Washington quarter that represents the absolute zenith of this series. A coin with a value that will make even the $118 million we're discussing right now seem almost modest by comparison. So you absolutely cannot miss what's coming because it's going to be the most shocking revelation of this entire journey. But let's stay focused on 1988 for now, because this year holds special significance in American history and culture that adds context to why coins from this period fascinate collectors. This was the final year of Ronald Reagan's presidency, a time when the Cold War was beginning to thaw, when the internet was still primarily a government and academic tool, when personal computers were just starting to become household items, and when the American economy was experiencing significant growth. The Philadelphia Mint during this period was operating at peak efficiency, and the fact that such dramatic errors could occur despite modern quality control makes these coins even more remarkable because they represent the rare intersection of human oversight, mechanical malfunction, and pure chance. The grading of a coin worth $118 million would require absolute perfection in preservation despite the errors it contains. And this might seem contradictory. How can a coin with multiple minting errors be considered high grade? The answer lies in understanding that grade refers to the condition and preservation of the coin as it exists, not whether it was made correctly. A coin could be struck off-center on the wrong planchet with doubling and broad strike characteristics and still receive a grade of MS67 or MS68 if it has no wear, no scratches, no environmental damage, and retains full original mint luster with sharp details on whatever portion of the design was actually struck. This is why storage and handling matter so incredibly much. A coin with errors worth millions can become a coin worth thousands if it's improperly stored, exposed to moisture, handled roughly, or cleaned with abrasive materials. The market for extreme error coins operates in a realm that most casual collectors never see, where transactions happen through private dealers, where auction houses hold special events for elite clientele, where provenance and authentication documentation become as valuable as the coins themselves. When a coin reaches the $118 million level, we're not talking about something you can sell on an online marketplace or take to a local coin shop. We're talking about artifacts that require insurance policies, security transportation, climate-controlled storage, and buyers who have the financial resources to make such purchases, often institutions, museums, or extraordinarily wealthy private collectors who view these coins as both investments and historical treasures. The authentication journey for a coin of this caliber is extensive and can take months or even years, involving submission to top-tier grading services, examination by multiple expert numismatists who specialize in error coins, metallurgical testing to verify composition, die variety specialists who can identify the specific die pair used to strike the coin, and sometimes even forensic investigations to establish the chain of custody and prove the coin's legitimacy beyond any possible doubt. There have been cases where coins initially thought to be worth fortunes turned out to be clever counterfeits or post-mint alterations, and there have been equally dramatic cases where coins dismissed as common actually turned out to be extraordinary rarities once proper examination was conducted. So the authentication process protects both buyers and sellers in this high-stakes marketplace. The psychology of discovering a coin like this is absolutely fascinating because it often follows a pattern. Someone finds an unusual quarter, Maybe they notice it feels different or looks slightly off. They do some preliminary research online. They start to get excited but also skeptical. They join coin collecting forums where they post images and ask for opinions. They get conflicting responses ranging from, "It's worth face value," to "Get that authenticated immediately." And they enter this emotional roller coaster of hope and doubt that only resolves when professional grading returns a verdict. I want you to imagine what it would feel like to send a quarter to a grading service, to wait weeks for results, to finally receive a package in the mail, and to open the certification holder to see a coin graded and authenticated as a genuine multi-error specimen with an estimated value of $118 million. Your hands would shake, your heart would race, your entire world would change in that instant. This is why people get obsessed with coin roll hunting, with metal detecting, with going through old collections inherited from relatives. Because they know these treasures exist, they know ordinary people have found them, and they know that the next discovery could be theirs. The historical value proposition of coins like the 1988 P. Washington quarter extends beyond mere monetary worth. These objects represent tangible connections to specific moments in time. They're artifacts that people actually used or could have used. They carry the weight of history in their metal, and they serve as reminders that value can be hidden in plain sight, that the extraordinary can masquerade as the ordinary, and that paying attention to details can literally change your life. Every single day, millions of Americans receive quarters and change, drop them into tip jars, feed them into parking meters, or toss them into jars without a second glance. And somewhere among those millions of transactions, there might be another 1988 P quarter with errors, waiting silently to be discovered, waiting for someone to notice, waiting to transform someone's financial reality. The educational aspect of learning about coins like this is invaluable because it teaches observation skills, it encourages critical thinking, it reveals how complex manufacturing processes work and how they can fail, and it opens windows into economics, history, metallurgy, and art all at once. When you start examining quarters with intent, you begin noticing details you never saw before: the delicate lines in Washington's hair, the tiny letters of the motto "In God We Trust," the precise spacing of the date numerals, the texture of the background fields, and suddenly these common objects become fascinating in their complexity. The community of error coin collectors is passionate, knowledgeable, and incredibly welcoming to newcomers, with forums, clubs, conventions, and online resources dedicated to helping people identify potential treasures and learn proper collecting techniques. And being part of this community means you're never alone in your search. You have access to decades of collective expertise, and you can share in the excitement when anyone makes a significant discovery. Now, as we prepare to move forward to our final coin, I want you to think about what we've covered so far. We started with the 1991 D. Washington quarter worth $110 million. We've just explored a 1988 P. Washington quarter worth $118 million. And the pattern should be clear that we're building towards something even more spectacular, a coin that will represent the absolute peak of Washington quarter value. And when I reveal the details of that final coin, you're going to understand why I've been building this anticipation. Because what's coming next is truly the crown jewel of this entire series, the coin that every collector dreams about, the find that would set you up for generations. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere, because the most incredible part of this story is just ahead.